Hey everybody, David R. Becker with Becker Art, and today I want to talk about the varnish again, and the wax again. and I did a deep dive into this subject matter, and it's been a big thing because all of us watercolors want to kind of get rid of the glass and the matte board so that I can have my paintings look a little bit more like an oil or an acrylic and make it look more like rich, like those kind of paintings. And so to do that, you need to get rid of the wax and matte board. I mean, the glass and matte board. And so to do that, you have to protect your watercolors. And so I've been telling you to wax. I've been telling you to don't wax. I've been telling you to varnish. Don't varnish together and wax. And I finally decided to take a deep dive into all those because I just keep on telling you what I hear as I go along. But I said I got too many questions after my last week's one about, I bought the wax and now you don't want me to use the wax. And so I decided to take a deep dive into this whole subject matter. And I came up with a lot of things I didn't know. And so here they are. So number one thing about Lightfastness or UV protection for your watercolors is that the pigment, if it's light fast and there's a rating of watercolors, then you don't really have to protect the UV with the UV protection because that is the UV protection of a light fast color. So if you're using a watercolor with a light fastness of 4 stars, it doesn't need UV protection because that's already a pigment that is light fast. And so the UV is protected because it's a light fast color. And so I didn't know that. I read a couple things on Gamblin because they were talking about they also produce a wax, and so they said that if you have those colors, if you're using light fast colors, you don't have to use a UV protection. So that's what I read on the internet. So I'm not sure, but that's what they had on their website. And what are you talking about when I say light fastness of the colors? Each paint that you get has a rating on it, and so the ratings. And let me just get my text. There's a rating of the permanency and the light fastness of each pigment. And so if you look right here, this permanency rating right here, this is a Holbein lavender and it has a 2-star rating. And that's 2 stars out of 4. And so this is about a half rating of protection of light fastness. So this one is not as light fast as some of the earth tones and some of the other colors that have 3 and 4-star ratings. And those have the ratings because that way they're light fast. So if there is sun on them, it's not gonna fade. Opera has a 1-star fading. That's gonna fade after time because of the light, because of the UV rays. And so this is already protected. The pigment itself is already protected. So if you're using light fast colors, then just wax it because you don't need the UV protection because it has that in it. Now, for some of you that think like, well, I want to give it a protection anyways, and that's fine. So then use the UV spray. And I also found out recently, because I told you not to use wax last week, and the week, like a year before, I told you, yes, use wax only. And so all this stuff is what I keep on hearing as I'm going along. And so if I'm looking at these Dorland wax, this is the Dorland wax. This is wax, and there's also Gamblin wax. It's all cold wax, and so you can use that on the paper or the watercolor, and then what it does is it penetrates into the paper. If you're just using this wax, it'll penetrate into the paper, combine with the pigment, and get hard, and then it cures, and it's like an acrylic or an oil that's dry, and so then you have to wait for it to cure. And then I was told now that yes, you can spray over that with a varnish. Okay, so, and I think you can also spray with both kinds of varnish. There's a couple different kinds. There's acrylic varnish. There's an oil-based varnish, like, the polyurethanes and stuff. And I think you can go with both of them. That's what I hear. That's what I heard right on the internet. And so I'm going to take it for its word. But they also say to test everything that you do on like an old painting and test it first, and don't do it on a good painting. So if you're waxing it first and you want to spray it afterwards, that's fine. Or if you want to spray it first and use like a UV protection spray, like a UV spray, like this UV resistant Krylon. So if you want to do that first and then put the wax on it, I heard that's okay too. So, but now the wax will not penetrate into the thing because you're protecting already the pigment with this Krylon. And so, one or the other. I guess you decide on what you want to do. And again, protect or try and practice with both of these on a sheet of paper so that it doesn't, wreck after 2 or 3 days. Check it out and make sure that it's okay and it didn't like separate, or it's not adhering, or it's doing a weird thing. So just make sure that it's all good before you start spraying it onto a good painting that you had done spent a lot of time on. Because this is not a guarantee that what I'm saying. It's just what I read, and when I took a deep dive into everything. I even asked ChatGPT about this, about what, can you spray this on top of that? Can you put this on top of that? Can you just use the UV and then put this crystal clear on it too, which is this varnish, this liquid varnish. This is a liquid varnish that you can also use on there, but I would not use this first on your watercolors because this is a liquid and it's a water-based liquid, and so this may affect your, like if you drop some water on your painting, it's going to do like that. So that I would not suggest to do. If anything, you put it into a spray gun and spray it on, that's okay, but don't put it on wet, because that I would not do first. With the wax, it's totally fine. The wax is not wet, and it just goes over and evens everything out. And each one of these makes it a little bit shinier, and don't use the matte. I definitely don't use the matte spray, because the matte spray has particles in it that make it look matte, and that kind of covers up some of your thing. It doesn't make your painting watercolor look better, because it puts a little spray of something over it that makes it not as clear, and that's how they make it matte. So go ahead and use it all. Use the wax first, varnish over it, use the varnish first, wax over it, or just use one by itself. Use the Krylon wax, Krylon spray all by itself, and then just put 2 light coats on it, and I found that to look pretty nice, and it protects it from UV spray and from water. And the crystal clear, you can put that on if you want. I found that it kind of evens it out too. But you just watch out, because you want to use these all glossy, so you don't want to put it on thick, because then it'll make it really glossy, unless that's what you want. If you want it really, really glossy, then put it on thick. But I suggest very thin. And same thing with the wax, put it on very, very thin, and that way it'll cure. I once put it on too thick and it never cures. It becomes tacky, and you can't spray stuff on that. So when you do spray stuff on there and put varnish on the wax, you got to make sure it's totally dry and cured. And that sometimes takes 24 hours and sometimes a week, depending on your, the atmosphere in your studio or wherever you're doing it. All right. So I think that pretty much covers now. And I told you the rating. Right? Because the rating is the star rating of the. Again, just let's go over it real quickly. The star rating. This is the star rating of the paints that you look at, and each paint I'm sure has a different star rating. I'm not sure if they all do the same stars. But this one is right here in the Holbein. It's, like I said, right in the corner by the stars, and it gives you the permanency rating. And I went to their website, and they explain it all. They have this label in there, and then I looked at, they also have every paint and what the rating is on it. They have that on their website, and you can just check it out. I'm sure all of the other paint companies have that too. And so if you're using all these colors that are already permanent or light fast, then you don't have to protect them as much as you think you have to protect them. But if you really want to protect them and then put the UV spray on, that's fine too. All right, so use whatever you want. All those people that have been saying, oh, I got the wax now, and you tell me not to use the wax. Go ahead and use it. Go ahead and use it. Spray on top of that. That's all fine. And I've heard so many different ways, and they're all fine now. All right, so do whatever you want. So I will talk to you hopefully on Sunday and on Thursdays. And if you watch me Sunday mornings, I do a demonstration. On Thursdays, I do a paint along, which you can find on my website every week. And also please subscribe. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe so you can find out what I'm doing on Tuesdays and what I'm doing on Sundays. All right, and have fun protecting your watercolors. And we'll talk to you later. Thanks. Bye-bye.